man. You cannot be serious!
Well, this podcast only remains on air, Dick and Wayne, for the very reason that every fortnight or thereabouts, if he's available, this man joins us, and that's the only reason that we've stayed on and we have any credibility at all, because he is the number one broadcaster in Australia and maybe even the world, if you just take the demographic down and how many people are in Australia and how many people listen to the radio around the world. And we are so indebted to him because he is a star, and he is the great Dr. Ben Fordham, MD, managing Don. He didn't have much go at getting Don back on the podcast, but the tag has stuck, and he's referred to as the Doctor now. Dr. Ben Fordham, welcome, Doc.
Merry Christmas, Dick and Wayne and the whole crew. How are we? I've just reached a little bit of news here in Sydney that's already landed here that Wayne's made an announcement in the last few minutes. That
You bastard. You said that you were going to reveal it on this, Wayne.
Well, I thought I'd go the bigger format.
He knows about it.
Yeah.
He's gone to the...
Yeah, look, Wayne, congratulations, mate. What wonderful news.
Yes,
So when's the baby coming? In January?
Yeah, 15th of Jan, unless Jess comes early, which could happen.
As opposed to yourself.
And yes, no, nice to meet you, Ben. I actually, Sam, coming on when we decided that I was going to do the show with you, a good mate of mine, Dylan Howard, who is an avid listener. He said, by the way, the podcast has a lot of credibility. And I said, why? And he said, because Ben's on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what he said. So.
We have no credibility. Ben, the Doc is the man.
Wayne, I think you've saved the podcast, and of course Sam is so modest because the only reason people tune in is because they love hearing Sam Newman and they love his very unique taste on the world. But I've got to tell you, Wayne, I met you briefly at the Billy Joel concert in Melbourne about a year or two ago.
Yes.
And I watched you from a distance. We said g'day and briefly, and then I watched as multiple people came up to you asking for a selfie and asking for a chat, and I watched how you entertained every single person who came along and had a chat with them and gave them a pat on the back. And I was really, really interested just to watch the way, because I think you were going through a few challenges at the time, and sometimes when people with a high profile are going through things like that, they kind of keep their head down and try and stay unnoticed. And mate, you were just fantastic, dancing along and singing along with Billy Joel and giving everyone a respectful amount of time who came up and asked to say g'day, get a selfie. So, mate, it was good to watch.
Well, thanks for saying that. I must admit, I was contemplating whether to go to that concert or not, but I'm a massive Billy Joel fan. It is one of the entertainers of this world that I know. I know a few of the songs. So
he's great.
It's my demographic. But I do remember the night now, actually, and I do remember...
But, mate, we were unlucky because we were not there on the night that Molly Meldrum got up on stage and took his pants off. Or no, that might have been for Elton John. I think that was the Elton John concert.
You're right. You're right. I actually, I know that man quite well. And after we got beaten in 1998 in the grand final, I dragged him around to all of the...
Who?
Molly.
Oh, Molly, yep.
Molly,
sorry.
yeah. And he didn't do any of those sort of shenanigans amongst the footballers, but I got to know Molly quite well. But that was a good concert, Billy Joel, and I do remember now, Ben. I do remember.
And mate, tell me, have we got a short list for names for this beautiful little boy who's entering the world?
No, but I would appreciate your help, given your listener.
Well,
no, but your listeners might come up with some ideas.
I think you want to go for a strong Aussie name. That's what sometimes when I hear names
Maccas?
Now, like there you go. There's a good idea.
My young fella though,
Maccas.
Ben. My young fella though, his name's Carter, which is a bit American.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, but Carter.
But Carter's a good name, but that's because
Coco?
surnames became first names about 10 or 15 years ago, where people started saying, righto, well, let's use that surname as a way of and transfer it into a first name. But I've got a godson who has just turned 18, I can't believe it, and his name is Banjo. And his twin brother is Darcy, Banjo and Darcy. And when they were born, I thought, they're good Aussie names. I was in a pub once in Vietnam somewhere, and I met a bloke called Lawson, and I thought I quite like that. That's a great Aussie name as well. So I don't know, maybe an Aussie one somewhere. I don't know whether Banjo Carey works or.
Well, I went to.
But anyway,
Jeff Lawson was a Wagga boy. He was an Australian fast bowler, if you remember. Actually, you mightn't be old enough,
of course,
Ben, but he was from Wagga. Although great Aussie name, Sam. Didgeridoo.
Didgeridoo Carey.
I don't know whether it'd fit on a name tag. What about as a first name, Warnie?
Warnie Carey.
Warnie Carey.
For whatever reason, Warnie and I knew one another reasonably well, but we weren't mate. We hung out on a few occasions, Sam, and for whatever reason, people used to get us mixed up, and I think it was the Shane Wayne thing. And I remember getting
I don't think they would have got you mixed up for that reason.
I remember getting into a few.
If we could have traded black books, I think that's probably where we got mixed up.
It might have been a bit of crossover.
Hey, Doc, incidentally, Wayne has just staggered us here today. He said, I don't know if you're aware of this, do you ever go into the airport lounges? Wayne has said copulation and sexual relations is rife in airline lounges in Australia. Qantas were mentioned. He said he's never seen so many people move into the disabled toilets. I've never noticed this. Have you noticed it, Doc?
Yes, I have. Wayne is right.
Shit.
And that's because travel makes people horny.
It's true. It's true.
Yep. It starts even on the school bus as a young boy. Even the vibration of the school bus, if you're sitting up the back, and that's where the traveller earned its name. If a young boy becomes aroused and he can't quite understand why, well, it may just be the vibration of the school bus, and that's why you call it a traveller.
Buggers.
Not to be confused with the morning mongrel. If you've just all of a sudden woken up and something's appeared from nowhere. But yeah, at airports, it is actually a thing that people are more attractive at airports. Like if you're sitting there and you've got 45 minutes or a couple of hours waiting for a plane, particularly if you're on your own, and you look across and you see another single person of the opposite sex, you all of a sudden start computing in your mind to kind of think, I wonder who she is or where she's going, and you find yourself thinking about things that you would never, ever think about if you were just bumping into someone in a waiting room at a doctor's surgery or lining up to collect a pizza or something like that. It's quite strange. So, yeah, I think that certainly travel in general does heighten the senses, and that's why some people might find themselves wandering into airport lounge bathrooms. And some of those bathrooms are actually quite large. If you go if you're a Qantas Club member, some of them have got a shower and other facilities as well. So, you could stay there for half a day.
I'd say, Sam, I told you. And the other thing, you don't have to be single and look over at another single person. You can be there with your partner. But what I do know, and this is just through a little bit, I won't say experience myself, but just knowledge, and that is that it generally happens on your way to the holiday. It's not
rather than coming back.
Rather than coming back.
No, that's true. Yeah, on the way home, you couldn't think of anything worse. It's like,
you're over it.
Do I want to assume the emergency brake position? No way in the world. Well, mate, we now know, Sam, why Wayne has got no issues with making babies, because all it takes is going to an airport.
Away we go. And he just also said it happens at restaurants as well. He did. I said, shit, it's unreal.
Yeah.
I got to get out a bit more.
I've discovered it can happen anywhere, anytime.
Yep. Have you paired one off? Have you ever paired one off at a lounge and moved into a back area? Not a back area. Moved into a room at the back, Doc, yourself, or is that asking too personal a question?
No, I'm not a frequent flyer member. No, I don't.
Not a lounge member.
And you're not going to believe it. Jodie's just walked into the house as you're asking me that question as well.
So Jodie, I didn't realise Jodie has Jodie left 7 to study.
No, yeah. Jodie's left Channel 7 because she's now focused on her legal studies. So she's 2 years into studying to become a lawyer. And the good news is, when any of us land in trouble going forward, we get half price rates on on legal advice. So,
Well, this leads me on to what I was going to ask you, that maybe Hugh Marks has left Channel 9. He's going to run the ABC. Is that right or not?
Yeah, he's just been announced. Hugh was our CEO at Channel 9 for many years. He's probably two back. We've got a guy, Matt Stanton, at the moment, and Mike Sneesby was before him. But before Mike was Hugh Marks. He was the CEO for a number of years. Really good bloke and a good operator. And he's just been announced as the new boss of the ABC,
Well,
which is a huge
rip
gig.
that into a bit of shape.
Yeah, it certainly needs it. And you know, there'll be a few people within the ABC who'll be thinking, oh, what have we got here? You've got a bloke coming from the commercial world, but that's what they need at the ABC.
They do need it, don't they?
I mean, Trump-esque.
Yep.
You need someone with commercial realities who can come in there and say, like, for example, if they were to put a show on air, a radio show on air, where you had one conservative and one lefty, and they were there together, and they hosted the show together, the ratings would spike.
It would go
right?
for the roof, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but they're not brave enough to do that, you know. So, you know, once upon a time, the ABC would even put Andrew Bolt on, right? They'd give Andrew Bolt. He used to pop up on the Insiders program once upon a time before he had his own show.
Yep.
And I think the ABC is at its best when you've got a real good, strong mix of views. And I think they think, well, News Corp is so right-wing, we need to balance that out. But that's not their job. That's not what the Charter says. The Charter says you should be independent, represent all views, represent all Australians. And as we've seen, I mean, you look at what's happening at the moment with politics in Australia and what's probably going to happen early in the new year in the federal election. I mean, Albo's cooked.
Yeah, he is.
Albo is officially finished, you know, and I say that as someone who's got a deep regard for him as a human being. I think he's a decent bloke. But there's no way in the world that Albo hangs onto his job. I think he's going to go early with an election. I think he could actually go and visit the Governor-General as early as the 19th of January with a view of having an election in February because, mate, you've got to rip the Band-Aid off. I mean, he just keeps on sliding. And the reason I think he's going to go early with an election is he was pinning his hopes on a rate cut, but all the economic indicators are now saying there won't be a rate cut early in the new year. So he may as well just rip the Band-Aid off and get in there and have a crack and see how he goes. And Peter Dutton has gone from a bloke who looked like he was unelectable to now being front and centre and a chance of winning and becoming Prime Minister.
Because, Doc, he's going to stand in front of one flag. He's going to get rid of all that other nonsense and just stand in front of a flag that represents Australians.
Exactly.
Well, Sam, can I tell you that it was March of this year when I raised the fact that the PM stands in front of three flags, and when I did it on air, I said, look, I'm guessing that this will get me cancelled because that's the way the world works in 2024. I'm not trying to antagonise anyone or be offensive to anyone, but let's be realistic. 99.9% of Australians have got no idea what the flag of the Torres Strait is. And personally, I'm a big fan of the Aboriginal flag. I love seeing it fly on top of the Sydney Harbour Bridge.
Really?
But when the Prime Minister is addressing the nation, he should be addressing the nation in front of one flag. I mean, you don't see, there's no way in the world that Donald Trump or Joe Biden would stand up in front of multiple flags. I think it makes sense to have one flag. Peter Dutton's pulled the right rein there. He may not win the election outright, but if Albo just hangs on and he's in minority government, then there are strong Labor people who are already saying, well, it would be a chance for him then to retire and to give someone else a go. But I would not discount Peter Dutton winning outright because while the mathematics tell you that he's got a really steep hill to climb, it's about momentum and mood.
Yep.
And when momentum meets mood, anything can happen. It doesn't matter how many seats you think you've got to win and how out of reach that might sound. We saw it happen in the United States where people said, oh, well, you know, Trump's probably going to give her a run for her money, but he's not going to be able to win outright. And he absolutely smashed it. And I think if you would test the mood of the average person at the moment, and if you were to ask them the question that Trump was asking during the US election, are you better off than you were several years ago? The answer is going to be no. And I think Peter Dutton is going to find himself, I'm not going to be surprised at all if he wins and he's the Prime Minister of Australia in the first few months of next year.
What about Erin Molan? I want to ask you about Erin because you just talked about being cancelled, Sam, and I don't know whether you're. This is obviously off the cuff, but I've met Erin a few times, and she had a view, and there's a lot of views to say that Sam, she's got sacked for one reason, and there's a theory on why, and all of that. Ben, have you got a theory on that?
Mate, I can tell you, Erin. Yeah, so Erin used to work at Channel 9. Then she had a radio show. She had a newspaper column as well, and a Sky News show, and then they have decided to part company. And then there was this kind of rumour that took hold that Erin had been cancelled because she'd been a strong supporter of Israel. That's just not the case. I mean, Sky News Australia, right across the board, has been one of the strongest supporters of Israel since October 7. So there's no way in the world they're going to punt her for something like that.
Yep.
She has now been asked the question, why were you punted? And she gave a one-word answer, budget. And I would suggest that is the likely reason why it's happened. She was doing a show one day a week. And these days, you've got to be on every day if you're going to be someone who's delivering value for your boss. I mean, one of the reasons why Carl Stefanovic, for example, has been such a well-rewarded member of the Channel 9 team financially over many years is because he's on every day. So once upon a time on Channel 9, for example, the biggest show you could be on was 60 Minutes. Well, now, with the attention spans that we have, people are going to forget about you for between Monday and Saturday. You know, if you're on there every day, then you're earning your bucks every day. And sadly for Erin, she only had a show one day a week. I would suggest as well, and this part is only a theory, Wayne, but I'd suggest as well that with Ray Hadley's retirement from radio, and the fact that Sky News want to try and use Ray a little bit next year, well, they're going to need some money to do that. So they probably look around and say, well, Erin's being paid X amount of dollars to host a 1 hour show one day a week. Well, we'll have to make some cuts. So,
the reason why I asked that, Ben, is because Erin has reached out to me a few times over the years, and she's got a lot of empathy. I've always found her to be lovely and
nice girl.
Just really nice. And
what she reached out to you for,
Wayne? Yeah, well, no, she's gone through a few challenges too, mate.
Yeah.
So Erin's gone through a few challenges herself, and so it doesn't surprise me that when someone else is, that she's taken the time to reach out and check in. And look, her old man Jim Molan was one of the greatest Australians we've ever had. He ran our efforts in Afghanistan when we were taking on forces over there that wanted to destroy us. A really level-headed bloke who was a senior military figure and just a decent human being. So that's the blood that she's got flowing through her veins. And she's a single mum. She's trying to do everything on her own. She's got her own fashion label. She's one of these very ambitious people. So one thing you can be guaranteed of is the fact that she's not going to just all of a sudden disappear.
So you put the skids under elbow when you announced that he'd bought a multi-million-dollar property up in the country. He lost his credibility after that, Doc.
Well, yeah, that was the house at Copacabana. And, you know, I mean, if a Prime Minister was going to spend $4.3 million on a cliff-top house 6 months out from an election, you just hope that it's in a suburb named anything but Copacabana, because it kind of, you know, it really stuck. And look, the reason a lot of his Labor mates were annoyed about that is because it sent a bit of a perception out there that maybe he was ready for the next phase of his life. In other words, if you were confident that you were going to win the next election, then why would you be spending $4.3 million on a joint that you're going to have to find a tenant for the next 4 years, which isn't easy at that top end of the market? You know, not everyone has got the money to rent a $4.3 million cliff-top mansion up on the central coast of New South Wales. So that sent a message that maybe he's planning for his retirement. So if he does lose early next year, that's where he'll be. He'll be at Copacabana. And I spend a bit of time up there as well because my mum's got a place up at Avoca. So I'm sure I'll run into him up there at some stage.
Yeah, so that'll be exciting for you. Now, have you heard of a bloke called Ranald McDonald?
Ranald McDonald?
Yep. You heard him?
I can't say I have.
Not Ronald.
Really?
Reynold.
Randall.
Well, we don't know.
Ranald McDonald.
We don't know whether it's the
He
Reynold.
was used to own The Age and the David Syme, and he used to.
Yeah, but I've told you, you've got to be careful. People can use.
He's
someone
very
else's
prominent
name.
Australian.
Yeah, correct. If it's
He
that,
gave us a belting on Instagram. He said, "We're two sad people," and I'm still trying to be a star.
I'm not sure.
But who is he?
Well.
Oh, you must know Randall McDonald. Not Ronald, Randall. Ranald.
Ben, as you know, you can have someone that uses your photograph on social media and everything else and say that there's someone. I would assume that if it's the man that you're talking about, Sam, that he would not
Age.
be bothered about
David Syme.
tweeting about you.
He might, though. He might.
He did.
Hang on a moment. When did he own The Age?
Ran in the 70s, 80s, the David Syme.
He was an editor of some sort.
No, he
wasn't
wasn't an editor. He owned it. He ran it.
But hang on, The Age has been
David
owned
Syme.
Fairfax.
by Fairfax historically. So unless his surname is Fairfax, he's not one of the owners.
Well, he is. He ran it. He ran it, and
you've spent how many minutes worrying about this bloke?
That's what I said to him.
I mean, honestly.
if you look up Ranald McDonald, he is a very prominent person in the Australian media industry, and he was the president of the Collingwood Football Club, and he said, "We're still trying to be stars, and we were sad people."
Well,
You have to check the authenticity of the account. That's for sure.
I've heard of most people in Australian media and sporting life. Okay, now I'm not suggesting this bloke doesn't exist, but in order to track him down and work out who he is, I'd need to contact the missing persons unit.
And the problem is, Ben, it mightn't be
Who
him.
is this bloke?
It
Yeah,
might
no
even
one knows.
be him. It could be just someone using his name.
It could be, just a troll who's decided to use
there's
a
no
famous
way out.
person's
But
page.
he also might be sad and lonely, and he's looking for an invitation to Christmas Day lunch.
Yep.
That's true
Projecting.
Just reach out to him, Sam, and say, "Are you okay? Do you want to come and join me
On the
for
show.
lunch on Christmas Day?"
Ranald McDonald is a retired Australian media executive. McDonald served as the managing director of David Syme Company, publishers of The Age in Melbourne. He's been in the Boston University. He ran the Collingwood Football Club. He's had more appointments.
How many followers?
I'm
He's on
just
his
reading his
Wikipedia.
biography.
I know, but how
And
many followers?
he's never had this much publicity in 25 years.
How many followers?
And you're
I'm
and
not
you're
sure.
giving
We've
it to
made
him.
him famous again.
And the other thing too, Sam, is I'm not sure a guy of that age is going to be on Instagram.
How old is he?
Well, I don't know, but by the sounds of it,
Well, let me
he's
tell you,
old.
He's 86.
Yes.
He's a big
He
Instagrammer, though.
posted, he sent the message by carrier pigeon.
Yeah,
I mean, seriously.
yeah.
All right,
I don't
I'm
think
taking
it's
it
the
all
real-
back.
I don't think it's
We
the
gave
real-
Now
him
listen,
a bit of a
can I
belting.
just ask you boys a question? Dick, you first of all, where are you Christmas Day? What does Christmas Day look like?
Well, I think I'm going to be, probably getting together with my sisters. They live down the peninsula, so I'm going to be probably doing a family thing, with my two sisters and their families and, girlfriends and all that kind of stuff. So,
Okay,
just
Wayne,
a
what are we
traditional
doing?
Christmas.
Yeah, well, Jess, as we've already discussed, heavily pregnant, so we'll be down at her brother's house down in Torquay, just with all the cousins and young kids running around. So that's why I try to keep young, Sam, because I'll be the lifeguard on duty by the pool. I'll be looking after all the
that's
kids.
good.
Yes.
And Sammy, what are we doing? You and Sue are doing something
Yeah,
special?
I was going to go to some Christmas carols, but I thought I might get beaten to death with people with machetes protesting about Palestine, so I'm going to just stay indoors and wait till it blows over.
What about you, Ben?
Mate, I'm going up to Avoca, up to the Central Coast, and
Beautiful.
I'll be there we'll wake
With
up there
Albo.
Christmas morning. Yeah, Albo will be up there. I'll be waking up there Christmas morning with the family because I had to convince everyone that this was a good idea because I can still remember the first time waking up on Christmas Day away somewhere on holiday. And we thought it was the coolest thing in the world, waking up, opening presents and then running down and jumping in the ocean. So we're going to be doing that. And my mum will be up there and my sister and, every man and his dog. And we're actually going to have a barbecue. We're going to do an Aussie barbecue on Christmas Day.
Beautiful. We've already discussed this, Australia Day.
I just said, look, why don't we do a bit of an Aussie barbecue on Christmas Day? So yes, we'll have the ham and the prawns, but let's also just throw some sausages and some lamb on the barbie and keep it nice and relaxed.
Yeah, I like it.
But we've always had a bit of an orphans Christmas as well. I don't know whether you guys do this, but you know, there are certain people who, you know, if you're talking to people in the lead up to Christmas and you work out that, hang on, they may not be with family on Christmas Day. I've got a mate called Drew Murray who lives down in Tasmania. So every year, without doubt, around November, I ring Drew and I go, now, where are you going to be? Because he spent one Christmas with us and we just loved having him with us. So I don't think we've got any randoms joining us this year, but I can remember growing up one year where Mum gathered all the children around and she said, look, we've got some other people joining us for Christmas lunch this year. And we said, yep. And she said, one of them has been in jail and he's just got out of jail. And we went, oh, you know, and you imagine when you're 10 years old, you think this is the craziest thing in the world. So, yeah, Mum and Dad were always pretty good at doing that. You know, they had a friend who had a son who'd gone off the rails and he just got out. And Mum and Dad suggested he come over and have Christmas lunch with us. So,
reaching out
and
and helping.
if there's any jailbirds out there listening, you're welcome to come and join Sam and Sue for Christmas Day lunch.
I like that, Ben. My mum actually did that one year. Unfortunately, the jailbird was my dad.
Oh, really?
So you've only met this bloke called Drew once, and you've asked him to Christmas dinner, did you?
No. Drew's an old mate who I met him through a story years ago. I did a story on him years ago because he was the Catholic. He was abused by a priest in Tasmania, and through that we got together and started investigating, and we actually ended up, you know, the priest ended up getting arrested and convicted. He's now dead, thankfully, and but through that, Drew and I became mates, and then he took me crayfishing in Tassie, and then we went motorbike riding at one stage, and so we've just become mates. Drew would be, I don't know how old he'd be in his mid-60s, I suppose, and we're just like two peas in a pod, and so I always say to him, you know, it's a bit hard when one's in Tassie and one's in Sydney, but one year he was up here looking after a boat, and I went to visit him 2 days before Christmas on this boat, and I said, so where are you going to be for Christmas Day? And he said, I'll be right here. And I said, mate, no, you got to come over to our place. He came over to our place, and we had this great Christmas lunch with my grandfather, who was alive at the time, and so, you know, I like those things. I'm always on the hunt. A few years ago, I'll tell you this one. A few years ago, I was up at this cafe near my joint, and I was actually having a coffee with Gladys Berejiklian, our old Premier in New South Wales, right? So, and anyway, Gladys and I get talking to the waitress, and she was from Canada, and her name was Sydney from Canada, and she just arrived in Australia. And anyway, the next day I was up there, and I know the boss of the cafe. I said, mate, where's Sydney?
Because
She
Victoria.
was saying, yeah, anyway. So, mate, cut a long story short, 2 days later on Christmas Day, Sydney from Canada joined the extended Fordham family for Christmas Day lunch.
Oh, that's
so she was, and we ended up FaceTiming her parents, and her parents were crying in Canada because they couldn't believe that just a week after arriving that she'd found herself at a Christmas Day lunch. So,
when I said Sydney's near Victoria, I mean Victoria is a province of Canada.
Oh, yeah,
yes,
okay. Thanks, Sam.
You're being facetious, Sam. That is true Aussie spirit. That's what we're known for. Doing stuff like that, Ben, is what Australians are known to do.
Correct.
And you know, the reason, and the only reason I do it, Wayne, I try to do it, is because when I've travelled overseas, mate, I've had people welcome me into their worlds in ways where you think, why are you doing this? Or I've been in America before when Thanksgiving was on, and someone said, what, you're here for Thanksgiving and you're not doing anything? You know, you're coming with us, you know. So even in parts of the world, like in parts of Asia where, you know, they've got nothing compared to what we've got, and they'll go out of their way. The same thing has happened to me in Lebanon, in Turkey, in all different parts of the world where people extend the arm of friendship and take you in. So I've always felt a bit guilty about that because it's harder in Australia because it's harder to tell who's the local and who's the tourist, right? Because we're so multicultural. You know, like I've even extended I asked a bloke one day, I thought, here's a bloke, here's a couple of, tourists from Asia. And I was with this girlfriend at the time and I said, let's see if they want to have a beer, right? Because I could tell they were tourists. They looked like tourists. They were taking tourist photos down near Sydney Harbour. We were about to go and get a beer. And I said, because I didn't seem like a weirdo, I thought, I'll just open up with it. I said, do you want me to take a photo of you two together? They said, yes, please. So I took the photo. And I said, where are you guys from? And they said, Rockdale. Now, Rockdale's a suburb of Sydney about 20 minutes away from where we were, right? So my plan fell flat because here was me thinking that they were visiting from China or something like that. So it doesn't always
Racial
work
profiling.
out well. But yeah, a bit of that. But I'd suggest that to anyone. Never be afraid of inviting someone into the Christmas Day lunch because you find that it becomes a hell of a lot more interesting than staring at the same people over and over every year.
Does anyone go to church at Christmas? Anyone here go to church? I've been to the evening mass before.
Not here.
No, mate, I don't, but my mother would love it if I did, and I know that my mum will go. So considering I'm up at Avoca with mum in the lead up to Christmas, I won't say that I'll suggest it, but if mum says that she's going, I'll go along with her for midnight mass.
I'll keep away from church in case it's burnt down while I'm in it by the protesters.
Watch the Palestinian protesters, mate.
And now, Doc, this has become syrupy and hokey. This is fantastic. We're just asking the whole community to come round and share the Christmas Yuletide with the great Dr. Fordham. This is Doc, I'm just going to give you this. You'll love this question. Wednesday is podcast day, which happens to be Christmas Day. Would you like us to ring in? Would you like me to ring you while you're sitting around the table?
You're not doing a podcast on Christmas Day, are you?
Well, I was discussing this with Wayne. Wayne, we might do it on Tuesday.
I'm more than happy to do it Tuesday, or if you want to call
pre-record.
If you're going to be in here,
why don't you give it a rest for a couple? Why don't you give the podcast a rest for a couple of weeks while the rest of the country is resting?
Well, because when they're resting, they like to listen to this shit.
That's true.
They like to listen to you, Doc. Hey, Doc.
Keep the lights on.
Thanks so much for calling in. You're a
no worries.
Fantastic.
And look, if you are doing one at any time over the Christmas break, just send me a text 5 minutes beforehand and I'll be 3/4 of a chance of getting on.
You're a good man, Doc. Thank you so much, my friend.
Thanks, Ben.
Merry Christmas to everyone. And Wayne, it's lovely hearing your voice on the podcast, mate. I think you bring a level of sanity that has been sorely missing for some time.
Good on you, mate. Merry Christmas.
Good on you, boys.
Righto, see you,
Okay,
Doc.
bye-bye.
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 Now, don't take that off, Wayne. I've just looked up whales and windmills.
Yep.
And it says there's no quantifiable evidence. What are you doing?
Well, we're not speaking to Ben now,
he's
so we
off,
don't.
isn't he?
So you don't need the headphones on. Is what I'm saying.
I'm sorry.
That's all. I'm just trying to
trying
to help you out.
It says there's no quantifiable evidence that the windmills are affecting the whales.
So
I thought, full disclosure, I could have said.
So I was right twice.
But hang on, you don't trust the science, Sam, do you?
Hang on, I was right twice. So I said that was rhubarb. And then I said that killer whales were actually killing great whites, and I was right there, which you thought I was wrong.
No,
I've got to just bask in this for just a little longer.
Well,
so the fact that
I didn't have to tell you that there was no quantifiable evidence that whales are affected by windmills, but I thought in the name of full disclosure I would.
Thank you. So this might be a first and a last, Sam. So I'm just going to bask in it for a little bit. So I was right
If I make
twice.
another statement, I will be not fact-checking it. Fact-checking it on air, and so that I'm proven wrong again.
You fact-checked
Well, anyhow, so there we are. So the Doc is a very good man, the Doc.
No, he's a great man. And as you said,
he saw you at Billy
but
Joel.
to do those things, because, and you know what it's done? It's given me a timely reminder, Sam. It is Christmas, and I don't know whether you noticed, but you walk down Chapel Street, you walk down Clarendon Street, even Bay Street in Port Melbourne, but you walk around, the homelessness is at an all-time high.
Off the charts, isn't it?
And for all those people out there that think homeless people have brought it on themselves, and don't get me wrong, there are some that that have, and for whatever reason. But there are a lot of homeless people out there that are homeless for varying different reasons, and it is a timely reminder to acknowledge and appreciate about where we all are in one's life.
Count your blessings.
And it's given me a little need a little bit
reality
of a clean out.
check.
No, a little bit of a reality check, and it's also good to take your kids, which I'll be doing now, before Christmas, and I'll be taking them on a little bit of a tour. And whether it's pillows, blankets, whether it's food, whether it's something that you can just help out someone that, as I said, is homeless, and you can help in any way, I reckon it's a good little reminder to do what you can.
To be the good Samaritan.
And that doesn't mean drop off money and stuff so they can,
I tell you
use drugs.
I tell you who's angling, not because this person would wish it, is angling to be Time's Person of the Decade.
Yep.
And that is someone called Tess. Tess has managed to turn this man here into, to turn him around. This is the big swashbuckling, brutal fucking man who belted the shit out of all and sundry on and off the field.
Ben actually just highlighted for me because I did it regularly. And to be honest, for whatever reason when you've got young children, you get caught up, obviously, Christmas Day because they're opening their presents, and that's what Christmas is about. I'm not a massive Christmas fan, by the way, because when I was a kid, it wasn't a happy time for me, but it's happy time now because of my children. It was just a timely reminder. Ben inviting people into his home on Christmas Day, random strangers. It's a timely reminder that you can give. Christmas is about giving.
Give back.
And you can, like I said, especially the homelessness is just off the charts, and it makes me terribly sad.
If Ranald McDonald is listening to this
you better apologise to Ranald.
says that you are a sad person, we are sad, he will reconsider. He must be impressed by your
performance today. And finally, maybe Knackers Carey or Coco Carey. Or Les in honour of Sir Les Patterson. Les Carey. Ned Carey.
Les Carey. Anyhow, Chuck Carey. Chuck Carey.
That sounds good.
Chuck Carey.
Sounds like a movie star.
Cole.
No, Cole.
Chuck Carey, starring Chuck Carey.
Anyhow,
what about Casey? Is Casey
Carey?
Is Casey too much of a
Casey Carey?
It's a
unisex name. Yeah.
No, that's all
well.
right.
These days that could
Carter
work.
doesn't like it, but there's a Casey in Yellowstone, and he's pretty cool.
Did you see the critique about Yellowstone? They succumbed to the woke brigade. They gave the land back to the Indians.
Really?
Yeah, I watched the last episode.
I loved it. I
loved it.
He ceded
I
the
thought
land.
It was, well, if they didn't, it would have got taken up by others. So give it back to the original owners. The rightful owners of the land. So if they hadn't have given the land back to the Indians, of which the land was theirs in the first place, if they hadn't have given the land, given the land back, then they would have lost the land, and developers would have come in and developed all of the land. So if you're across it, they were the two options, Sam. Give it back to the rightful owners or give it to developers.
And why were they the rightful owners? Because they happened to be just there in the first place.
Because they happened to be there before anyone else.
Is that like here?
Well, yes, it is.
It is.
It is.
So this land is the rightful owners.
The rightful owners of this land, the people that were here first.
Bullshit.
Do I detect a welcome to country coming?
Let's get on to that.
Absolute
You know what?
nonsense.
Let's do a podcast Tuesday. Get on to that.
Rightful owners.
Well, they do.
Well, what did they own?
Well, they did. If they.
What did they do, or what did they own?
Well, how do you determine how do you determine whether someone owns a particular block
by
of
having
land
a
or not?
set of rules and a constitution and a system.
But before all that, before all that came in, Sam, if there were people that were settled on this land,
the previous settlers, not the original. The original settlers came from Brunei and Southeast Asia and up north, and then the land was separated by it separated and left Australia a continent.
Long time ago.
And the people left on it were the previous inhabitants.
So why are they not the owners of the land then?
Well, own what? Who said they just happened to be here? the land through settlement was developed and had a constitution, a set of rules that we all lived by, and it became a nation in 1900. And we should all just get together and be one.
So you agree with all of that all around the world? So you don't think that the Indians,
American Indians
own
have any claim?
Have any claim to land in America?
I'm not saying that. I'm not familiar with what the American.
Well, on your theory, that's the same theory.
Well. So you tell me, what was here before settlement?
Trees, grass,
Yes.
animals.
There were people here, obviously.
Yeah, of course, there were people here, Dick.
And indigenous people.
And what did they do?
But they were nomadic people.
They lived here.
Yeah,
they were
and
nomadic.
that's right. They lived here,
And they lived off the land, and they had
so why is
families
it their so why are they? Why is it their land?
Why isn't it?
Yeah.
No, but the idea of ownership itself is a European idea. That's the interesting thing. I think that's why.
Well, if you go off the European idea, well, you just go and take land that's not even yours if you want.
I mean, the Aborigines and the American Indians.
And this is
they were more communist.
A whole new topic. But if you want to talk about what the English did and what they did to countries that surround them, and the way they tried to do to those people.
So for whatever reason, Governor Phillip or Captain Cook or whichever one of those two people, they arrived, and settlement took place, and they from then on started to develop this country into what it is today.
Into parcels.
So if you don't have a set of rules or a constitution or a system of ownership or legality,
correct.
What was here before was a whole lot of tribes fighting one another, and I don't know how you say that
Terra Nullis.
This land was owned by anyone.
It's a topic that you can talk about forever.
It's complex.
Yes.
It's also something that I don't think just if someone's here first, you can just come in and make up your rules and say that now it's mine.
Exactly. If someone was here first, how can they say it's theirs?
No, I'm talking about the person that gets here second.
No, well, I'm talking about
they say it's theirs?
So
just because they make up a set of rules.
It's the same argument.
So what you're saying, if they make up a set of rules, or as you said, a constitution, or they all of a sudden bring their own
civilized
laws,
living,
so they bring their own laws and everything here, then that land becomes theirs just because they did that.
Yes.
You know what? I don't agree with that either.
And you don't have to.
No, of course you don't have to. This is why this is a good discussion. So if no one had turned up here all those years ago, what would be here?
Probably the Germans.
No. But there was nothing here.
It's a hypothetical.
Well, there was nothing here, though.
When you say there was nothing here,
well, what was here?
Okay.
So what did the indigenous people? What did the indigenous people have here going for them, besides just living off the land?
You say going for them?
Yes.
They were living their lives.
Okay, so people arrived here
and by
and
the way,
made
this is all just stuff we get told. So I assume they were here.
But say the English didn't colonise.
Living their lives.
Say the English didn't colonise.
Living their lives. Yes, nomads. That's correct.
And happy and
well, were they happy?
How do you know they weren't?
Well, because there was hundreds of fights tribing.
How do you know that?
Because
and they all died in their 30s.
Well, how do you know that?
I don't believe in a lot
you
of that.
You don't think hundreds of tribes were fighting one another?
I don't know that either, but I don't necessarily believe in some of this history stuff that we get told.
Is a lie, I think.
I don't necessarily believe it all.
Yeah, there are a lot of lies in history. I could go into a few examples.
So you don't think that there was just a
hang on, tribes? I reckon there's been more fights since.
There's been a lot of fights, yeah.
There's been more wars since.
But it is an interesting discussion.
Anyway, let's talk about it another time.
Yeah, surely.
Because it is, I can tell you're getting fired up.
No, I'm not getting fired up.
Look, Sam, it's just one's opinion. Mine's not right. Mine's mightn't be right. It's my opinion. Yours is yours.
And just give us your opinion again, just for the sake of this.
Well, my opinion is why wasn't it the Indigenous people's land? Why didn't they own it? Just because they didn't have paper and they didn't write down a contract or write a constitution or
didn't have anything
laws or
there was nothing
just
here.
Just because they didn't do that doesn't.
So you would have sympathy.
What about the people who arrived here and made the country what it is today? Why isn't it as much their land?
Well, that's the argument that we're having here.
Well, then the argument is that we're all Australians, and could we stop dividing people along whose land it is?
No, I'm happy to say that the arguing and the fighting has to stop in terms of this political jousting that is going on around all of that, and we do have to unite, just like other parts of the world. We do have to unite, and we do have to become one.
Well, on that basis, what a great way to end this. I'm not. I'm just saying that is a very, very salient statement, and one that we all agree with.
Yes.
A good pre-Christmas message.
And as I said, get out and give.
Help somebody.
Have a walk past
Give.
the homeless.
Just give, Sam.
Give what?
Give. Doesn't matter. Maybe you know what? Maybe give some time even. Sit down and have a chat to one of them.
To the homeless? Yep.
To anyone.
I see.
That's sitting there that looks sad and lonely coming up to Christmas. They might
That
necessarily
could be
be
me.
lonely.
Can we have
It
a
could
chat?
be you.
We can have a chat to Sam.
All right, Wayne, it's very, very good advice.
Time sometimes is worth more than anything monetary
Any
that
tangible,
you can give over. Correct.
any fiscal...
An ear, and just a chat, a conversation.
Yeah.
Well, Wayne, this has been enlightening. It's
Kumbaya.
fantastic. All right. Well, all the best, my friend, and we will speak again.
We will.
Here we go.